All right, so this is part three of my San Francisco phone photography series. And there is, I believe, 27. Let me see. Yep, 27 more pictures in here. And these are just all over the place. There's no theme to them, really. I mean, starts in one place, sort of jumps around town a bit. So let's get started. This is the main boardwalk area of Pier 39, I believe, and fairly crowded with people. I took the little tram-looking old classic. Wasn't the trolley, and it wasn't the train, and it wasn't the bus. It's these weird-looking, like cable car-looking things, sort of deals that actually run with the electric contacts up on wires. They go into certain parts of town. San Francisco still has that wiring system, like 150 years ago, and they used to have the electric trams running around. They're still crisscrossing wires in a lot of the intersections if you look upwards. That's fairly unique to that city too. As extensively as they have that system still is what's unique. And that is a busy shopping area, lots of little shops and stuff like that. And then you walk through there, and then there's some side boardwalks on the back side of those buildings. And if you go up to the back left corner of that, which we will see a picture of soon, that's the dock area where San Francisco sea lions hang out. This is the pier area, a trendy shopping area with the sea lions. So that draws a lot of people there. Just the shops and restaurants, and then of course you can't leave that pier without going and seeing the sea lions, of course. So, and we'll get to that. Very busy that day. I went to an aquarium that was in there, and then wandered around. I don't know. It was too busy with people for me. I don't typically I steer away from those kind of things, but that just was a state of affairs that particular day. Okay, this is another part of Pier 39. There's a carousel there, which is quite nice. I don't know what all that building on the right. It looks like the sign they have in the Santa Monica Pier, the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. The most popular one, of course, the most known one is one on the Santa Monica Pier. But I would not be surprised if they hadn't opened a location in this trendy area of San Francisco too. There's a ticket booth to a carousel, and that picture really is only the carousel. You can't make out or see much else that's around it. So that's that for that one. All right, so you make your way up to the corner, away from the crowded area, of course, on the little balustrade handrail thing where this is. There's quite a few people too, because a lot of people are watching this. So spread out over these floating man-made wooden plank things, which I guess are, you access boats and stuff on them, inside this little man-made cove with that cement seawall is a whole bunch of sea lions just lounged out, and there's one or two of them spread out on different individual floating ramps like you see there, but some of them have quite a few of them on it, and you can see they're kind of protected in that little cove from that cement seawall. And then there's the bigger bay outside, and then in the distance there you can see the Golden Gate Bridge, which you can make it out in this picture, believe it or not. And then there's a little sign floating on one of those little pier things that says Pier 39 with a picture with a painting of two sea lions there. So that's kind of nice. I mean, you're on a sidewalk thing. You can't get any closer than that. But if I had like my regular camera with a zoom lens, I could have zoomed in and got a good, perfectly clear picture of a pile of sea lions. So this picture needs no introduction, that is the Golden Gate Bridge. I was able to get a bus from my hostel, one or maybe two buses, no more two, but it didn't take that long to get there. And then you get dropped off by the bus right at this parking area, which also has a visitor center for the Golden Gate Bridge. And then you can walk out in this little overlook type thing, and that's where I got that shot. I think my intention that day, since I'd gone to the actual one end of the bridge, was to walk across the bridge. And that was my starting point. I was able to get there. The first day in San Francisco, I tried to walk toward the bridge and realized it was a little further down from my hostel than I thought. The distances or looks can be deceiving. So that first day, I was walked around that North Bay or that North City boat ramp stuff, and there was a little beach there. But on an entirely different day, I figured out how to get the bus right to the bridge. So there it is. I have some pictures coming up. I don't know if it's in this series or the next, where I took a boat ride, a little small charter boat type thing. And we took the boat right in and under the bridge, and then back into the bay proper, and then even circled Alcatraz. But those pictures will either be later on in this series or in part 4. I'm not exactly sure which. All right, so this picture is interesting. It says when you are right at, you can see where that fence is on the left. This is where you were right on, about to get on the sidewalk that goes all the way the length of the bridge. The other side of the bridge has a sidewalk, but I didn't see any access to that. It's just this one side. I guess that would be the east side of the bridge, is where everybody seems to be walking in both directions. But what's interesting about this picture is everyone knows that the reputation San Francisco Bridge has for people going to cancel themselves, I guess you could say. And as that's your last chance right there. They're putting a sign up: crisis counseling. There is hope. 24/7. Don't do it. Call for help. Talk to somebody, even if it's 3 a.m. I don't even know if that walkway's open 24/7, but at any rate. So what they did is, about a year before I was there, they put these barrier things underneath the edge of the bridge that was supposed to deter people from doing what they go there to do. But I looked over the side, and from what I noticed, it was almost like a nice try situation. There was a barrier thing coming out about 5-6 feet from the edge, from the side of the bridge. But what I don't understand, and what I'm not sure if they even realized, or maybe there was more to it than I could see, but a person could have just gone over the handrail like people used to do, jumped down about 5-6 feet onto that little thing that would catch you. But then from there's nothing to prevent you from just going over the thing that's 5 or 6 feet under a barrier and still going to the water. So it's kind of like, okay, you could go off the bridge, land on the little barrier 6 feet down, but that 6 feet isn't going to make enough difference, distance-wise to the water, that if you just went from there and finished the job, I imagine you would still wind up in the same, canceled state. So I'm not sure about all that, but this is it's interesting how even after putting that preventative barrier thing up, they still have that sign up, because they probably realize that, there's a will, there's a way, no matter how many barriers they put up. So here's a perspective walking on the sidewalk going across the bridge, and you can see on the right there's some fencing that comes up and curves upward, but there's several parts as you get further down where that fencing isn't there, and that's why they put up those barriers I mentioned in the last picture's commentary. So I've done some things to try and deter one of the things that bridge is known for. So I was just walking that way, stopped to get a picture, There were a few people walking forward and to and fro on there on the ridge. I mean, it's pretty um, uh, common for people to be walking on there. And of course, you could ride your bicycle. If you had a bicycle, that'd be great. Ride a bicycle up to the north side of the bridge, Marion County. The bridge is 1 point. It's at least a mile long, but it might be 1.7 miles. It might even be a little longer than a mile. So it's a pretty good little hike to get across the whole thing. Okay, this is if you when you're at these is one of the two big towers that's holding the cabling up. If you get to one of these towers and there's a little, you got to go in a little semicircle around it and then back onto the regular sidewalk. And of course, those little semicircles give a good place where there's railings to look right over the bay, back at San Francisco or toward Alcatraz Island. And so I was able to get off the regular path there and point the camera straight up and get a picture of one of those towers. So I think this bridge is like, it's one of the most famous bridges in the world, of course, and it's, I don't know, 150 years old now or something. Don't quote me on that, but I didn't research that before I made this video, but it's been there a while, and I'm sure they have to, make constant maintenance on it all the time, just make sure it doesn't fall into the bay. Okay, this here is, as far as the San Francisco area goes, my favorite little patch of beach. Now, I mentioned in my last video in part 2 how if you were in the city and there's lots of sort of big streets that run east and west across the length of Golden Gate Park and in other parts of the city. And I'm not sure that this particular beach, I think, when you went back onto the street is where the entrance to the San Francisco Zoo was. But you take a bus all the way to the end of this street where the water is, all the way to as far east as you can go on whatever, big street was running east and west up there. And he came up to this little stretch of beach, and it's sort of a smaller piece of beach, and up on top there was a parking lot and a house, with a bathroom and a changing area. That's always nice to be near a beach. And I came to this beach a few times. Now this I was actually then you got to walk down this sandy slope to get down to the beach, because it'd be kind of hard to walk up that steeper slope that you can see in the picture. They have a more gradual decline to get up to that top part where that little bathhouse is. So I went down here and then took a picture back of this. Now this beach isn't real huge. It's definitely not the biggest one, but it's quaint. Very nice, and you've got your amenities up there. I came down to this beach a couple different times. Dogs down there and people and stuff. I think I meant to go swimming here this day, but as you can see, it was kind of overcast. And an overcast day, even in the summer in San Francisco, it's going to be in the 60s, 70s. And then the water is already cold to begin with, so it was prohibitively chilly weather-wise and water temperature-wise for me to go swimming that day. But I did hang out and get some pictures at any rate. Okay, this is just weird. This is downtown. There's some little teeny parks, in between the office buildings and stuff in downtown. And that is just a strange little statue. And I think it was in a row of 3 statues that were all sort of bizarre like this. Now, if that's some known thing that I'm not, in the know about, you can comment about it in the comments if you wanted to. But, or anything else I'm, making mistakes about the San Francisco area. But that is a pretty cool little statue. I had to get a picture of that. Probably saying it was artwork they bought, paid for and installed in the downtown area. Okay, this is a park, the backside of a park that in the downtown area of San Francisco. It's got a little waterfall thing there. I think just to the left across the street was the Museum of Modern Art of San Francisco. And I don't believe I was there at a time when it was open. Not sure, but you could go around this fountain or whatever, and then go to the left and then to the right, and it opens up into this bigger park. I think when I was there, they had just had some outdoor concert of like classical music or something like that, because there was a lot of people leaving the park, and even some girl carrying a cello who had just performed. So there was something went on there that day that I missed. But that's just, that's just nice little waterfall architecture in the downtown San Francisco area. This was in that same park. If you look to the right, you can see the green grass, people sitting on it. And this was another fountain that was in there, but you could walk in a little walkway behind the water. And it was kind of cool because it was sun was out, a little bit warm. You go back in there, and that water is coming down so hard that it actually splashes you and gives you a little spray. So I cooled off back there, and again, that there was people were leaving from whatever concert that was and stuff. But that was a nice little place. This is inside of Grace Cathedral, which is in downtown San Francisco too, or maybe a little bit off downtown. As I said in one of my other videos, I had gone there to look at it on like a weekday, and they charge you like a $12 admission to walk around, just to see that. Excuse me. So I went back the next Sunday when it was open for an actual church service. I was very hesitant to go into a church because I thought I'd burst into flames, but I actually didn't. I was quite surprised. So I went in and sat in one of the pews and actually watched the service. I think it's like an Anglican Episcopalian service, which I was raised in as a kid, so I was familiar with the service going on, the format of it. Although I haven't been to a full church service in decades, I felt kind of weird because I was sitting in the pews and I wanted to get pictures. But it's like, oh, well, look, I mean, these people are at church, right? I shouldn't be going around taking pictures. But this was in the back of the area shooting forward. And they had the procession come through, and they had a choir, and there's a nice organ in there. So, word to the wise, if you want. Grace Cathedral is a very well-known church in the United States. So, word to the wise, if you want to see the Grace Cathedral for free, just go to church on Sunday morning. This is an alleyway. It must be in somewhere, but it looks like those Oriental lanterns are up above there. So it's probably another shot of Chinatown, an alley in Chinatown, and I'd already shown some pictures from Chinatown earlier, but this is just another picture that got randomly thrown in there. Sometimes when you take pictures, they don't come out in order. It all has to do with the whatever number the camera assigns to the picture. But that's kind of nice. I don't think I walked down that street, but I got a picture of it. Okay, this is down. Well, it's a cat, obviously. It's down this little alley that you go to where there's this famous. It's the fortune cookie store. It's where almost every Chinese restaurant in the United States, at least, gets their fortune cookies. So there's one place. You go in there, very tight, and there's these women sitting down or folding up fortune cookies, putting the little piece of paper in there, and then you can buy fortune cookies. I think I got a little 10-pack of fortune cookies as a gift for my mom. But while I was waiting for it to open, I was in front of this other business, and this cat was walking around. That's Chinatown Charlie. That's his name. I named that cat Chinatown Charlie. But and you can see the sewer cover there, SFPUC, SF for San Francisco. So that was kind of cool. I hung out with the cat for a while, waiting for the fortune cookie factory to open. I don't know. I can't remember what the name of the fortune cookie factory is, but that would be quite easy to find the name of it online. It's just down this little alley. And this was in a park in the downtown San Francisco area, and I saw it on the map, and I wandered down there. It was quite crowded. There were bathrooms, but it has the Chinese or the Asian kind of architecture done in the park. And I get there's just some benches under there. I don't think that really leads anywhere. To me, it looks kind of like a subway stop or something. Might have been done there, but there were no trains that ran through this park. To me, it just looks like a fancy subway stop. They have a subway stop like this in the Chinatown area in Los Angeles that has Asian architecture like that. That actually is a subway stop, but this one is not. It's just a park. Another one of those parks that are somehow miraculously designed into the downtown areas of San Francisco. This is the north city part, sort of near. It's one of the piers. I can't remember what it is. But in this area, you can get these big tourist boat things that cost like $40 to ride. That takes you out to Alcatraz and even let you off or whatever. But I'd read about this before I went there. If you go to one of the small area where they have these small trawlers and I guess fishing boats that people will rent out by the day to go out in the bay and go fishing. Well, on days that these people don't take fishing expeditions out, they fill up the back of their boat. They only charge you $20, and they ride you out to the bay, all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge, under the bridge, and they turn around, heading out toward the ocean. They turn around, they come back under the bridge, they circle around Alcatraz, and then go back. I just had to figure out what day it ran on, and then go back at that time. But it was great. Yeah, I have some pictures coming up from the boat too. But that was great. I think that white and blue one was I don't know if that's the one I rode on, but they all are similar. It's a really crowded little boat area, and a few of them will have those little tours going on there. It's a good thing to know about. Now this is a wide angle across the street shot of City Hall, and I think the main entrance to it is on the other side, I believe. I'm not sure about that, but as I think I was at the the back side of it, which is where the main branch of the San Francisco Public Library was, and I was going there, and I said, oh, that's a good shot of the outside of City Hall. Now that's the building where I had some pictures, or I explained in part 2, I believe. That's about Harvey Milk, the gay city supervisor in 1978. That's the building where the mayor, Moscone, and Supervisor Harvey Milk were both assassinated. Inside that building. So it's known for that, and it's a nice city hall. I got some inside pictures of that will prove just how nice it really is. Okay, this picture, I was hesitant or torn about whether I should even include it or not, but it was, since this is a thing now in the United States, I did get a picture of it. Okay, so I'm leaning against that wall. It's right outside the main library, I believe, or it could have been outside City Hall on the other side from the last picture. And I'm just sitting there, people watching or whatever, and this woman who it appears she was definitely messed up on something. And the thing I meant that's going on now is the fentanyl crisis. And she was on something, and I'm assuming it was fentanyl. And I was leaning against the wall right next to where she is. She literally walked right up, leaned against the wall, and leaned almost into my lap. You can see where her head is. Then I got up and moved away, and she was just frozen there in that position. So she may have been almost leaning on me for a second or two before I moved, but then she just stayed there like she was a frozen statue. And I think that's what that stuff does. You could go into these weird positions, people lying on the street in these weird positions that look like people who, they excavated from the remains of a Pompeii, when Mount Vesuvius volcano went off, they found people, frozen in these positions. That's what these fentanyl people appear to be like. And that's what she looks like right there. But she was literally, it's a pretty unnatural position. She's not leaning on anything, but she actually was staying upright in that position. And after I moved, I was just a few paces away. I got a picture of her. That lady, the lady's definitely in bad shape. And she wasn't the only one. There's in any big city apparently that's a big deal now. There's a lot of people who got their hands on that stuff, unfortunately. Okay, this is taken from yet another park. I can't keep all the name of these parks straight. Another park that's in the central part of San Francisco, and that is the very famous row of houses called the Painted Ladies. You had to get a picture of that, and it's so well known that when I was sitting there on the grass, that far house on the right, this little van pulled up. It was like an old Volkswagen bus. These had in the hippie days, all painted up psychedelic. They're still trying to milk the hippie thing in San Francisco, and said San Francisco hippie cruises or something, and 8 gullible schmucks got out of the bus being led by the nose. Oh look, one of our stops on our hippie tour of San Francisco is the Painted Ladies, of course, and they all got out and took pictures and got back in the hippie bus. And then went on about their way. And that park wound up being pretty big, too. It was another surprisingly large park, snuck into the innards of that tiny 49-square-mile city of San Francisco. But, yeah, that's the world-famous Painted Ladies in a row. And they keep them in really good shape, too. Victorian architecture. This was taken outside the proper entrance of City Hall, cross street. That is the Opera House, San Francisco Opera House, and then just to the left of that is another building that is the Symphony, San Francisco Symphony Hall. So you got your symphony and your opera. You don't see a whole lot of cities in the United States that have like their own opera house like that. The San Francisco Opera is supposed to be kind of a big deal. The San Francisco Symphony, I know, is world renowned. But that is I didn't go in there. Of course, they probably had an ongoing opera in the evening. But I left my tuxedo in Texas. I wouldn't have been allowed in anyway. This is the inside of City Hall, the big staircase. In fact, in that movie I've mentioned before, Milk, starring Sean Penn, after he was elected as city supervisor, there's a scene where someone comes to visit him and he sort of, dances down that staircase, trying to make a big deal like it was from Gone with the Wind or something. But at this particular moment, you can see that woman in a bridal dress. So it's probably popular for photography. They had her dress all spread out, and there's a photographer on his knees there in front of the stairs taking pictures. Probably photo shoot for a wedding or pre-wedding photo shoot going on in there. So that's kind of nice. And you can see all the classic architecture there on the walls. If you go up that staircase, that's the hallway where they have I think I have a picture of it coming up, the statue they put up of Harvey Milk in remembrance. And if you go up that staircase, to the left are the row of offices where the supervisors have their office, where he was actually assassinated. There you go. Not a very good, clear picture at all, but it is the picture at the top of that staircase of Harvey Milk, Harvey Bernard Milk. And it has a little San Francisco supervisor. I can't read all the print. That's how unclear picture is, and there's a little saying by him. So they memorial. They don't even have not that I'm aware of anyway. They don't even have a statue of the Mayor Moscone, who was killed just minutes before Harvey Milk was. But they did put up a on there. It was one of the first gay men who had ever been elected, to a public office, even in San Francisco, which is kind of like, has a reputation for being a gay mecca. Back in the 70s, they were still being persecuted. It was really a big deal when he was elected to be one of the 9 or however many it is city supervisors. So he had the gay people in the Castro and Haight-Ashbury district. Those were the 2 districts that elected him. They had a voice at that time, and he got a lot of reforms and stuff done, for the gay community. But then he got shot to death by a maniac. This is from the top of the stairs, shooting up to the rotunda. You can see nice architecture there. I think you might hear some dogs barking in the background. They're ruining my recording session here. But yeah, that's very nice. All right, I have no idea what this is, why it's there. It's a street sign, obviously, in downtown San Francisco called Hemlock. And I don't even think there was much on that street. It was almost just like a little alley going between 2 buildings. But I thought that was interesting. So, I'll meet you downtown on Hemlock Street. That doesn't sound ominous or anything. Okay, this was inside the San Francisco Zoo. Not a real great zoo. I mean, it was adequate. They did have, this is a giraffe, of course. The most interesting thing I saw in the San Francisco Zoo was an outdoor little pavilion thing with all these little caves in it, and there were penguins, but they weren't in a cold, frozen area like you usually see penguins, black and white. These were like brown penguins, and they live in the regular temperature, which is already, San Francisco's already kind of cool, and there was a little water pond for them to swim in, and there was an information sign next to a penguin exhibit that said that actually only a much smaller percentage than people think of penguins actually live in Antarctica in the frozen areas. Most species of penguins live in regular temperatures. So they got some of those kind of penguins and made a little outdoor habitat, which you could almost walk right up to. And there wasn't anything, frozen about it at all, like you usually associate with penguins, right? That was kind of nice. That is an ape sitting in a bucket. Pretty much all I can say about that. It's like, looks like he's having a great time. It's like, well, I played with that box in the foreground and I rolled that ball. I guess I'll go sit in this bucket for a while. Okay, I've done that. What do I do the rest of the day? Yeah, I don't know. It's just not a very clear or a great picture, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Of all the places that ape or gorilla or whatever it is could have been sitting, he decided that big black plastic bucket was the place to be. And this is the last picture of this Part 3 series, just a close-up of that carousel, which was in the pier. I'm sure that was the Pier 39 area where the sea lions are. And I've got a close-up picture of it. It's kind of nice. I mean, I didn't write it. I mean, I've written something like that in years and years and years. I wonder if I wrote on it, it would probably just, hurt my prostate and my hemorrhoids. It wouldn't even be any fun. It'd be more of those hard plastic horses. It'd be more torture of someone my age than anything else. But anyway, it's a nice, colorful thing. It's kind of cool that that's there to begin with, though. So that is the end of Part 3 of the San Francisco phone photography series. There will be a Part 4, which I think there's some really interesting stuff there. And as always, thank you for watching.